Michael Gove has come under fire for saying he didn't know what Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe was doing in Iran when she was arrested in 2016. Mr. Gove told Andrew Marr he would take her husband's assurance that the British Iranian citizen was on holiday. He was defending the Foreign Secretary, whose own comments have caused concern that her sentence could be extended. Labour said he was more interested in protecting Boris Johnson's job than Mrs. Zaghari-Ratcliffe's liberty. Shadow Cabinet Office Minister John Trickett said Mr. Gove had compounded Mr. Johnson's cavalier approach to international diplomacy. Mrs. Zaghari-Ratcliffe was arrested at Tehran airport with her 18-month-old daughter in April 2016. One of several Iranians with dual nationality to be detained over a period of months. She was accused of trying to overthrow the Iranian regime, charges she has always denied, and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. She says she was on holiday in Iran so relatives could meet her young daughter. The arrests were seen as part of an attempt by Iran's Revolutionary Guards to undermine President Hassan Rouhani and the process of thawing relations with the West. Last week UK Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson was criticised for suggesting she had been training journalists on the trip, causing concern it could cause her sentence to be lengthened. Mr. Johnson has since said the government has no doubt she was on holiday and that was the sole purpose of her visit. Asked on Sunday by Mr. Marr what she had been doing in Iran, Mr. Gove replied, "I don't know," adding there was no reason Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe should be in prison in Iran so far as any of us know. He went on to say her husband was the person who would know and he would take his assurance that she was on holiday. He said, "We make a big mistake if we think the right thing to do is to blame politicians in a democracy who are trying to do the right thing for the plight of a woman who is being imprisoned by a regime that is a serial abuser of human rights. Who is in the dock here? Iran. It should be the actions of their judiciary and the Revolutionary Guards." He added the UK should not play their game. Meanwhile, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn and London Mayor Sadiq Khan have both called for Mr. Johnson to resign for putting Mrs. Zaghari-Ratcliffe at risk. Mr. Corbyn told The Observer Mr. Johnson should be sacked as Foreign Secretary for undermining our country and putting our citizens at risk. Mr. Trickett said Mr. Gove was more interested in protecting Mr. Johnson's job than the liberty of a British citizen in jail in Iran. Theresa May must ensure Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe does not pay the price for her minister's bungling, he added. Mr. Gove and Mr. Johnson were Vote Leave campaign allies during the EU referendum but later fell out during the 2016 Conservative leadership race. It is understood that Mrs. Zaghari-Ratcliffe's husband Richard spoke to the Foreign Secretary on Sunday. Mr. Ratcliffe told the BBC he hoped he might be able to travel to Iran with Mr. Johnson to meet his wife.